Every breach has a moment where someone makes a choice. Welcome to Threat Level Human, where we examine the attacks that exploit that moment, the psychology behind them, and the people caught inside them. The attack vector you can't patch.
The trust boundary. How attackers ride your vendors and tools into the core. For 123 days, an intruder moved freely through a corporate network, and on the day investigators arrived, every system was still running normally. No alarm, no crash. On one domain controller, a single extra file quietly copied every employee's password, in plain text, each time they logged in or changed it. Nobody broke Windows. Someone registered with it, using a feature Windows offers on purpose. This is what that looks like. Incident setup. In May 2026, Microsoft published 2 investigations that describe the same problem from 2 angles. In the first, a threat actor Microsoft tracks as Storm 2949 turned one compromised identity into a cloud-wide breach, exfiltrating thousands of files and dozens of stored secrets. In the second, Microsoft Incident Response investigated an intrusion that lasted 123 days, run entirely through a trusted third-party IT provider and the organization's own software. Neither attacker broke in. Both inherited access the organizations had already granted. This is the trust boundary, the invisible line where your security assumptions hand control to something else, your people, your vendors, or your operating system. By the end of this briefing, you will be able to name the 3 trust boundaries in your own environment that almost nobody audits, and the pattern is industry-wide. Verizon now attributes 30% of breaches to a third party, double the year before. How the attack worked. First, the identity trust boundary. It starts with one identity. Storm 2949 impersonated internal IT support, told users their accounts needed urgent verification, and walked them through approving multi-factor prompts during a password reset. Once a user approved, the attacker reset the password, stripped the existing authentication methods, and enrolled their own device. We took apart exactly how that vishing and authentication step works in our MFA Under Siege episode, so here we pick up the moment after the attacker is already inside. Because one compromised identity is not the breach. It is the key to every trust relationship that identity holds. Trust boundary number 1 is the line between an identity and the resources it can reach. Cloud platforms treat a valid login as trustworthy by default, so the attacker ran a custom Python script against the Microsoft Graph API to enumerate users, groups, and applications across the tenant exactly the way an administrator would. They compromised 3 more accounts the same way. Then they reached the Azure Key Vault. Think of a key vault as the organization's digital key cabinet, one locked box holding the passwords to everything else. In 4 minutes, they opened it and read dozens of secrets, including database connection strings and credentials. They did not crack each lock. They photographed every key in the cabinet. Next, the vendor trust boundary. Trust boundary number 2 is the line between a vendor and your infrastructure. In the second case, the attacker never touched the victim directly. They compromised the victim's third-party IT provider, who managed an enterprise monitoring platform called HPE Operations Manager. That platform was already authorized to run scripts on servers and domain controllers, so the attacker used it to do exactly that, with no vulnerability exploited anywhere. Microsoft was explicit that there was no flaw in the software itself. It is like a thief who never picks your lock, because the building manager, who already holds the master key, was the one who got robbed. Now, the system trust boundary. Trust boundary number 3 is the line where the operating system trusts its own components. On the domain controller, the attacker registered a malicious network provider, a file named mslogon.dll, into the Windows authentication stack. A network provider is a legitimate Windows extension point, a slot the system offers for add-ons that need to see logins. By filling that slot, the attacker captured every username and password in clear text as people signed in and changed passwords. Picture a second cashier drawer installed inside the register. Every sale rings up normally, but an identical copy of the cache slides into a hidden drawer only the thief can open. They did not crack Windows. They made Windows do the credential theft for them. Why it worked? None of this worked because of a clever exploit. It worked because trust has no signature for your tools to detect. Start with the human at the help desk. Self-service password reset exists for a good reason, to help locked-out employees without a support queue. The attacker did not defeat that feature. They borrowed the authority of IT and the urgency of a verification request, and the user did exactly what they were trained to do, which was to be helpful and to comply. The organizational conditions run deeper. When a valid identity acts inside the cloud, every action looks like administration, so lateral movement is frictionless and quiet. When a trusted vendor's platform runs a script, it blends into routine operations. Outsourcing IT management is operationally normal, but it silently extends your trust boundary to include everyone your vendor trusts, and you rarely see that surface. Kaspersky found that 3 out of 4 organizations hit through a trusted relationship only discovered it after the damage, not from their own monitoring. Trust is the one control we deliberately designed to ask no further questions, and attackers have noticed. Operational impact. The consequences were not theoretical. Storm 2949 reached production Azure subscriptions, changed the password on the main production application to lock the owners out, and exfiltrated data from storage accounts over multiple days. In the second case, both domain controllers were harvesting credentials during normal sign-ins, and the intruders proved how durable that access was. After investigators detected and disrupted them, the attackers simply returned on days 104 through 106 to re-enable their persistence and deploy more tooling. For scale, supply chain breaches take an average of 267 days to identify and contain, and the global average breach now costs $4.44 million. Dwell time like that is not an incident you survive. It is an occupation. Lessons learned. So audit your 3 trust boundaries with 3 specific questions. 1. Identity. Who in your organization can reset credentials and enroll authentication devices, and is that action verified through a separate channel before it completes? 2. Vendor. Which third parties currently hold execution rights on your critical systems, and when did you last review what their platforms can actually run? 3. Operating system. Do you know every network provider and authentication package registered on your domain controllers, and would you notice a new one appear? The pattern across all 3 boundaries is the same. These attackers did not overpower defenses. They redirected trust, and trust is the one thing your security stack is built to honor, not to question. If you cannot answer those 3 questions confidently, you already know where the next intruder is planning to walk in through a door you left open on purpose. Verify your vendors and your tools. Do not simply assume they are behaving. If this analysis was useful, subscribe so you do not miss the next one. All sources used in this video are listed in the description.
This case study is a mirror. Somewhere in your organization, a similar interaction is happening right now, a conversation, a request, a moment of urgency, trust, or confusion. The question isn't whether these attacks are targeting your people. The question is whether anyone recognizes the pattern before it turns into an incident. New episodes every week. If this kind of analysis is useful to you, subscribe and leave a like. It helps more people find it.